And we've decided to combine the two panels, and I would really like it to be an interactive discussion. I think everybody's heard enough from me over the last few days, but I would first like to invite Megan Stain up from CBD Care, and certainly a women's leader in cannabis and wellness in South Africa, to say a few words about two of our sisters who we lost recently.
Thank you, Myrtle, for the opportunity to do this. So I'm going to read it. It's with profound sadness that we say goodbye to traditional Dr. Sharon Price, who passed away suddenly following a heart attack. Her passing leaves an enormous void in the cannabis, natural health and healing communities, and in the hearts of all who knew and loved her. Sharon leaves behind her beloved children, Garth, Sheldon, and Misha, who worked faithfully alongside her and will continue the life's work that Sharon dedicated herself to. She was also a proud grandmother to Layla, Zach, Kia, Luca, and Kiara, each of whom brought immense joy to her life. For many, Sharon was the founder of Carol's Oils, but to those who knew her well, she was so much more. She was a teacher, a healer, a mentor, a mother, a grandmother, and above all, a fierce advocate for the cannabis plant and the people whose lives it has touched. The name Carol's Oils, that was her company, itself carries a story of love and loss. It was born from the memory of Sharon's beloved sister Carol, whose passing deeply affected her. Later, when Sharon's mother was diagnosed with cancer, Sharon drew upon her growing knowledge and experience of cannabis and natural healing to support her mother's journey. Through her dedication and determination, her mother was able to enjoy many more years of life, something Sharon always regarded as her greatest blessing. Sharon's path was not an easy one. She faced challenges that would have broken many people. She endured the trauma of having her farm raided by police and the unimaginable heartbreak of seeing her dog shot and killed in front of her, all because she believed in a plant that she knew could heal. Yet despite the adversity, she never stopped fighting. She never stopped educating. She never stopped standing up for those who needed a voice. She was a warrior for cannabis long before it became acceptable to speak openly about its medicinal value. She dedicated countless hours to teaching others, sharing her knowledge, supporting patients, and helping people find hope when conventional options had failed them. Her courage paved the way for many who followed. Sharon was also in the process of writing a book, a project very close to her heart, and it is my sincere hope that this work will be completed and published later this year, ensuring that her wisdom, experience, and teachings continue to reach and inspire future generations. Her training programs, teachings, and educational work will continue. Through Misha and her small dedicated team, Sharon's mission will live on. The seeds she planted over decades of advocacy, education, and healing will continue to grow and flourish. Personally, Sharon was one of my mentors. She was someone I could always turn to for guidance, wisdom, and encouragement. Her influence helped shape my own journey, and I'm absolutely gutted by her passing. Only a short while ago, we also lost another remarkable woman, my dear mentor and friend, Sister B. Sister B was an incredible traditional healer, nursing sister, and Rastafari herbalist. These two were my tea trees whose roots ran deep in our cannabis community. They stood fearlessly for the healing power of this remarkable plant. They nurtured those around them, and they inspired so many of us to keep learning, keep advocating, and keep serving. The cannabis community has lost two of its greatest pioneers, but their light will never be extinguished. Their voices will continue to echo through those who carry their work forward. Rest peacefully, Sharon and Sister B. Your fight is over, but your legacy lives on.
Wow.
Wow. Powerful words. Indeed. So I've been reading the topic of this women's panel, and I think Amy and I have been speaking amongst ourselves, and I'd like to just pick apart the title a little bit, because it says bad policy creates bad outcomes for women. Is that true? The usual narrative is that women are excluded, there is uneven distribution of both responsibilities and opportunities for women. And then the little preamble to the title said, excluded from the political process, underserved by health systems and reduced to a reproductive commodity. I'd like to ask the question, is this true? Because I know that South Africa has one of the largest representations of women in politics in South Africa. And I do know that there are state institutions and various periphery organizations particularly dedicated to women. And I often see coming past my inbox, there will be a small business development workshop at the CSIR dedicated to small businesses and women. I do know that there's lots and lots of opportunities for women in South Africa, certainly, but maybe not everywhere in the world, and maybe I'm not telling the truth. You know, maybe I just see those as titles coming across my inbox, but we're just paying lip service. I know that historically, women were the cultivators. We've had a very long tradition of over 120 years of migrant labor in South Africa. And in our traditional rural growing areas, the men were away. If you went down to Ponderland, or you went up to the Limpopo, or you went across to the Northern Cape, I'm taking it from the Joburg perspective, and you went to the rural growing areas, you would find women, children, and old people, because the men of working age would be off as migrant laborers, usually working in mining and industry. But has that really changed? So I'm giving my panel a whole lot of new perspectives on women in South Africa with Canvas, but I know that our people that don't come from South Africa might have some different perspectives. But I didn't really want this panel to be, a woe is us as women kind of discussion. So I would rather like the discussion to be around what have we got right, what is looking promising, and what still need some more work. How does the socio-political environment inform drug policy which ignores, marginalises and punishes women and girls? Are we really still doing that? Are we being ignored? Or is there some hope? That would be my question to the panel today. And I would just like everybody to introduce themselves. You probably know Megan, Amy, T, and I, but maybe you don't know the rest of the panel. So, June, welcome to South Africa. I'm sorry we've been running around like headless chickens, and we haven't even had a chance to have a little preamble, have we? No, we haven't had a chance. So, I would really like people to introduce themselves, just tell us who you are. First, a round of introductions, and then that long list of questions that I gave you, we can all just discuss amongst ourselves. And please just put up your hand if you'd like to chime in. This is certainly not, we're not waiting until the end for Q&A. So we're starting with June, who comes from the United States of America. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself?
It's great to be here. I'm a professor in Southern California. I do teach campus law. I have worked with Sean previously on some other student-related things which didn't happen or didn't work successful. I contribute to the campus law report, and I have an upcoming book, undergraduate textbook in campus law and practice.
Great, the legal perspective. Megan.
I'm in the health and wellness space. I've got a brand called CBD Care. I make bombs, CBD bombs, obviously. Yeah, that's the case.
Hello. I'm Amy Heystek. I work for Fields of Green for All alongside Myrtle. I am incredibly passionate about harm reduction, and that's kind of become my forte. I started just helping out, and cannabis changed my life quite literally. So very grateful to be here.
Hi everyone. My name is Kandake, or my title is Kandake, which means Queen Mother. My name is Tebogo Ramfate. I am the chairperson of the Soweto Cannabis Association and the founder and lead researcher of the AfuRaKa Institute, where our work sits at the intersection of African history, indigenous knowledge systems, heritage protection, as well as research and knowledge production.
Hi guys, I'm Cameron Lewis. It's a hard name, I know. But I'm new to the cannabis industry. So all the laws and the stuff that you guys are saying, it's taking me a bit like I feel like I have imposter syndrome. But I'm formerly from the nightclub industry, Loop and Long Street. I work, liquor license, liquor board and all that stuff. So when I do attend these meetings, it's so fascinating to hear their take on cannabis business, and the laws and how actually anybody, can open a shop. I have both a Section 21, a dispensing doctor, I've gone the holistic route, I do all that stuff, and I also do social clubs. So we were on a panel, Megan and I, and we joined. So we are like, the holistic approach. So I would like this panel to actually inform us more as a woman in business. Where do we stand, and what's happening? Is SAPS informed? Because they can raid my one shop, but they can't raid my other shop. So there's a lot of things business-wise that I feel on the ground, all the fancy stuff you guys are saying here, it's not implemented. Basically, yeah.
So June, let's start with the title of this panel. It says, "Bad policy creates bad outcomes for women." You don't think it's policy, full stop, not necessarily just policy, it's the regulations or the implementation of that policy that creates bad outcomes for women? Or do you think from a law perspective, particularly in Southern California, which is maybe a little bit of a more mature environment than ours here in Africa, do you think bad policy creates bad outcomes for women?
If you make me say yes or no, I would say no, because I don't think it's policy that does it. And I don't think that the regulators in California, and I'll only speak about the United States and California, in their mind want to harm women. But I also think that women are harmed. And I know I think also women who talk about women frequently face kind of pushback, like, for example, the woe is me thing. I think it's okay to say I'm impacted without also feeling sorry about that. But I don't think it's policy. And I think the policy is really trying to create equality, but it doesn't, not for anybody. And I think there are just systems in place that where I live benefit men and hurt men as well. All those same systems, patriarchy, hurt men just as much. There's ideas of masculinity and femininity. I think it hurts men just as much as women.
Yes, I had many years ago a Native American teacher, a really wise woman who taught me a lot. I wasn't sort of sitting at her feet as a pupil or anything, but just somebody who crossed my path who was really, really influenced my life. And she said something very interesting. She said, the time of separation is over. Because we used to hold sweat lodges. And in some of the sweat lodge traditions, they divide the men and the women. And the men's on one side and the women's on another, which we respect. But when it came to June Wise Eagle's sweat lodges, no, the time of separation is over. So this brings me to my next question, Megan. So what do you think, there's something new that we can say about women in cannabis? In terms of, if you had to take it from your CBD care brand, what would be a new message to put to women out there that's not these old persecuted cliches?
My message to women is we need them more present because we are a minority in these sessions. And, you know, with Sativa Sisters, we have a group called the Sativa Sisters, and we have a lot of engagement and talking. And we recently had the expo, and we had the opportunity to get women on stage, and I really struggled to find enough people who had the expertise in different topics. And my message then is please step forward. Please step forward. We need you. We need that. So, and can I just touch on the bag policy one?
Yes, sure.
I do want to say there is one aspect where I think where women are affected quite is in this grey area of the space that we operate in. When clubs do get raided, and these young bystanders, or women have to go to jail, the likelihood of that woman and the experiences, I don't even want to say it, that you potentially have, that's where I feel that women are affected by that policies, as well as the fact that, this came up in the Sativa Sisters group, that young girls who go and work in these grey areas are then manipulated, or something happens to them, and they feel that because they are in a grey area, they have no recourse, they have no place to stand up, they can't, so those are the two spaces where I'll say that does take place.
No, definitely. I wanted to try and make this one a little bit more lively than usual. Cannabis, now, my dear Amy, so as a woman as caregivers, I think that is where not the harms of bad policy kick in, but I think the extreme harms of stigma. My mom uses cannabis is not what you want your child to be saying in school, is it? So in terms of harm reduction, what do you think are the main areas for women as caregivers for harm reduction principles to really gain traction in our society and not just becoming lip service, but how do we reduce this stigma when it comes to women as caregivers using cannabis?
Sure. I think, firstly, in my opinion, policy is gender neutral in its design. I think it's the impact is where things shift. And with women as caregivers, I think the stigma, as you said, is so rightly there. And I think women are, even in being in these spaces, potentially afraid of coming out and speaking that because of the stigma attached to that. And then being their caregivers, having the children, I think the impact of social services, those kinds of things, is a lot more inherent to women than it is to, for instance, a man, just because of the different roles we play in society and being the caregivers. I think in a harm reduction aspect, I think just education, creating safe spaces for women is really important. I think traditionally we've kind of led to doing that amongst ourselves, coming from a more patriarchal society. We've created our own spaces, and I think if we go back to like the ancient times before, women were a collective. We did groom each other. We did, our cycles sync together for a reason. It's because we are a collective, and we would go and leave the tribe for that time and caregive and take care of each other and create those safe spaces, which I think we don't really have that much of today, but it is improving, especially in this environment. I think just even the fact that we have more than one woman panel, or was supposed to this week, is progression. And I think it is, I think just creating those safe spaces and the education is a huge thing, not just for the children, but also for the mothers.
And amongst ourselves, in the book clubs, in the lift club, in the boardroom, everywhere. Yeah. Because I know over the years, people tend to look to me and say, oh, we need more women on this panel. Don't you know? Oh, it would be a bonus if she was black.
Crippled. I was a crippled man.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just the truth. So So Tia, who I regard as one of our most amazing emerging young woman leaders in cannabis, and as head of the newly formed Soweto Cannabis Association, which when I first started working with the Soweto Cannabis Association, it was Mike and Nash and Mr. Rory and not a woman in sight. And then along came Tia, which was like a breath of fresh air. So now, where do we find these young woman leaders like you? Because you're a rare and beautiful thing, you know? People who feel, where do you think we need to look for these people in the universities, in the community? Because I know there's lots of women involved, but people who can make a positive leadership contribution. Young, you know, I'm old and decrepit, but young, dynamic women leaders, where do you think we can start looking for these people, nurturing them and mentoring them?
We create these people, right? And also in these spaces, going to the expo and going to other spaces like that, the young women that come, they are hungry for knowledge. They're hungry for thirst. They're thirsty for knowledge. And when they see us, they see people who are trailblazers, I guess, in a way, right? So what we do is we create these safe spaces. We create women-only spaces where we invite these young women to attend workshops. You know, our work as the Soweto Cannabis Association is basically education, 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 free education for all, because then people have the most important barrier that people face in this industry is being educated. So what we do is we create the spaces where they can thrive, where they can feel safe, where they can come smoke their dab and laugh with us like she did last night. You know, we were with a young lady who was really excited. She's not even in the cannabis space. She works in software, but she wants to bring tech into cannabis, you know. So they come to these things, and our thing is to be open to mentoring them, to teaching them, to talking to them, and just being ourselves. Because I mean, Myrtle, you're one of my mentors, even though we're not that close. And it's just because seeing your work, looking at the things that you're doing and finding power within that, and seeing myself and what I could become in seeing women like you being in the forefront of these kinds of movements. So firstly, be yourself, continue to be who you are. Amy, wonderful, Mamju, you know, every one of us right here, everything that we do, these kids look up to. And our thing is to continue doing these things, to continue doing it fiercely, and to be fearless in our approach and to be open.
Sure, no pressure. Thank you. Thank you for the really positive note there. Yes, sir.
Well, one thing I wanted to highlight a bit, so we come from the medical cannabis field, and we run a medical facility in Montague side, and so one thing that's interesting is we've got 98% women that work in our facility. We only now, past 2 weeks ago, hired 3 guys because, like, you know, let's go. But so what we found in our community there is the farm workers, the men have worked pretty much all year round. Most of the time, the women are at home. And we are blessed in a position to be able to bring them in for hand trimming, for those types, even running the whole facility. For the majority of the time, it was only women run. I mean, she worked her way up from a grower to head of cultivation and runs the whole facility. And it's impressive to see that. And so just like, as you were asking about women in the industry in different ways, there are many facets. Like, people think of farming, if you look at cultivation of the plants, the way I see it, some people...
Young blokes in black hoodies.
Yeah. But also there's a mothering instinct that goes to cultivation of the plant. You just said, like, in the past, women were cultivating the plant. I do believe that we could grow the same plant, but she'll take more care of it. Hands down. And that's a big thing I've always believed in. So it's just from us from a different aspect, but I can add to that.
Yeah.
I would like to challenge that supposition that women are naturally nurturing. That's definitely not true for women.
Yeah.
We're with you.
Yeah. So, Carmen, welcome. Is that right, Carmen?
Thank you for saying my name right.
Yes. Yeah, Joe was coaching me. So welcome to our space. We, as you know, we're very open, welcoming. I hope you're on the Sativa Sisters WhatsApp group already. Yeah, and I'm not sure if Fatima's here. Yes, Fatima's here. We got it. Here's the people. It's Megan's group. We must get on that group. Okay. And next time, sister, you're going to be sitting here, okay?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
and-
She followed me all the way from upstairs. She was going to watch us downstairs, and then we joined downstairs. Yeah. So.
Yeah, just don't come up old and cynical like me. Myrtle, she's doing maybe. So what I wanted to ask you about your opening remarks. So you say you have two sort of different fingers in pie. So Section 21 and club. Is it two separate things? So now, which one in your mind is the more legal?
Look, as I said, okay, so my personal background is I started using cannabis a while back for health reasons. I've been sick. I have Crohn's disease, which they say doesn't work for. I do not even take
Smoked cannabis is good for Crohn's.
Yeah, I do smoke, yeah. And I started with outdoor. One day I had this AfuRaKa neighbor, and my husband was like so against it. I was like, I'm gonna smoke from instant pain relief. So over the past 8 years, I've managed my illness somewhat, you know. So I know what to eat. I smoke from the moment I get up until I sleep. I don't, you know, I don't think it's bad because it helps me pain wise. You know, it helps my symptoms. And then I got very interested in the whole cannabis, you know, wellness aspect. And in the lockdown, my husband passed away, and I was left with 3 kids and 0. And then I went into the nightclub industry. So I'm probably one of the few partners in Loop and Long Street because I work with only males. But I have educated them through the years about, you know, wellness and so forth. So I did meet someone because I work a lot with the police from the liquor board, and you get to know everyone, etc. And they don't even know what's the right way. So because I wanted my 2 kids, the one is 22, the one is 21, the older ones, I wanted them to work in the wellness center, you know. So that is why I went the Section 21 route, because I thought, you know, my kids are going to be there. I don't want them raided and, you know, stuff like that. So with that, I partnered with an acupuncture doctor, and we harvest our own honey, and, you know, I went totally medical, which I thoroughly enjoy. But South Africans do not want to pay that money. They're going to take that 800 and buy 4 indoor pre-rolls, and I have a beautiful health center, massage, and, you know, so it's really great that exists. And then I make the social route where I'm making money, because this whole grey thing, you know, the police they don't even know what's supposed to be happening, to be honest. Some places you don't even have to be a member. You just give your phone number. Now, obviously, as we're not exactly half of our people, I would not say, are well off in South Africa. You know, half people are suffering to even buy food with our cost of living. He's not going to pay 400 rand, 300 rand for a strip. He's going to go down the road and buy a joint. You know, so my thing is, when they do come to the social club, I do then try to ask them, why are you smoking? How do you want to feel today? You know, like, I want to know why you're there. Why are you just here at the weed shop buying, you know, weed? So I try and push the wellness that way, you know. Yes. So being a business owner, and listening to everyone and all the laws, it's totally out of my depth. As someone on the ground, we all totally lost, to be honest. Yeah, totally lost.
Yeah, exactly. And June, Southern California, is there a kind of a crossover between, I know we're getting off the women topic, but a crossover between the adult use and the medicinal market? I know you guys use my worst word in the whole world, dispensary.
Oh yeah.
I can't stand that word. Anyway, don't ask me. It's a bit irrational, okay? But everything's a dispensary. We call it a pharmacy or a chemist. Yeah,
we're going to do that soon with federal rescheduling, because it can only be sold through a pharmacy. But I will say there's a dispensary near me called pharmacy with an F. So, in their, the adult use market kind of erased medicinal because you don't have to have a card. You can just show your driver's license and you can be served. And so with federal rescheduling, it will change. And there's some hope. The predictions are that medicinal, well, it needs to be medicinal. And so it's very interesting to hear all your wellness because I think that may be a big push. Whether it's true, like all the business will be like, now we're into medicinal and wellness.
Yeah.
we have to.
Catchphrase upon catchphrase.
But I think it does make a difference. I think that language, even where I am at, it's amazing how much stigma I face. I didn't even grow up in Southern California. And writing my cannabis book, I took a sabbatical and talked about cannabis law. I gave a presentation at the college. 2 people showed up. They are silent when I talk about cannabis. And I'm like, this is your stuff. Like, I'm just talking about it. The stigma is deep. I don't think it's because I'm a woman, but I do think I'm at a stage in my life where I speak my truth. I'm very authentic, and I think they don't like that. And then I speak about cannabis, which is stigmatized. Yeah. And I'm white. I think they have in their mind who should be writing this book, and I agree. Some of my co-authors are women of color, but I think it's a funny thing to feel. I don't know if I'll put the right words to it, but I think they wish I had dreadlocks and a nose ring, and those are all good things, but I don't. And I wear suits, and I make it very classy, and I'm like, disrespect me if you dare, because this is a topic, it's an amazing topic for law, because, and I love hearing kind of all the downside of boots on the ground. I don't know a lot of that. Like, in terms of law, it's just fascinating. And anyway, did I answer your question? It's medicinal's coming back.
Okay. You think it'll come around? I've always thought that the wellness is such a nice middle ground because you're not going farmer, which has its own, stigma, and you're not going, smelly stoner. It's a nice middle ground with which gives a space for women to work in that's more neutral. Yeah, more neutral, maybe.
If I may continue, kind of just to, like the bud tenders that are female in the very few dispensaries where I'm located, very, very few, like 5. Bud tenders who are female are, they present in a particular way. And so they're very tatted, they're lots of body art, lots of piercings. And I often wonder, I'm like, if I became a bud tender and you came in and I was intelligent enough and educated and trained, what would that look like? Because it's just very different. It's very, there's so much prejudice, and it is amazing to sit and watch because it's supposed to be very open, and California is really cool, and Snoop Dogg and all that kind of stuff. And I have not been to dispensaries in LA. I'll do that, and then I'll come back and tell you. But where I'm at, it's almost conservative, and these dispensaries kind of go and present this the underground and the whole Bob Marley part of it. When they attempt, like pharmacy, which is very cute, they were all female bud tenders, and they were all very not as body arted. And I know I'm showing all it's my age or whatever. You can just judge me. So I think what's been fascinating for me is how deep the stigma is, even in a place that claims that's part of how they live. And in the classes, I see it come up. And when my cannabis law classes, like if there's any problem, I swear to God, they think I'm high. Everybody thinks I'm high. If there's a grading issue, if there were a couple technical issues.
Yeah.
I almost have to say, and they never think I'm drunk. I'm just like,
It's so disrespectful, though.
it's so disrespectful.
Too high.
And right before I came here, because I posted on LinkedIn, and they're like, "Oh, June, you're going to South Africa." Blah blah blah. So I started like talking about cannabis in Africa, and when I came to Malawi, I smoked and I shared. It's the first time I ever talked about that. Dead silence, crickets. And I know people on that Zoom call smoke.
Yeah.
And it was like, almost like, how dare you be so open about being able to do that? And I think I'd love to pull in my dialogue, because now I'm like, I'm just going to talk about it more.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to talk about wellness. And that way.
Don't care anymore.
And I think that is how we destigmatize the plant and plant use, because I mean we look well put together and we speak great English and we're intelligent people, however we get high. So it does not impair my cognitive abilities. In fact, watch me write an exam while I smoke my weed. You know what I mean? That's how
Color is very different. Like me, I'm Indian. Indian people, your my mother thinks it's the worst thing. When I go, you smoking. Like, mommy, yes, I
changed my
smoke.
entire
I am 46. I can. So with my kids, both my kids, they're 21 and 20. They smoke weed by choice. They do not drink. Okay, like I'll drink socially, but we do not have alcohol in our house. But you know, I'm in the backyard blazing it for me. I have raised 3 kids on my own and have 2 operating businesses. I mean, the stigma in Cape Town isn't as big, I think, as the rest of the world. Cape Town, you can just light it up on the road, man. You're in the car, it's not the same. You go to Durban and do the, oh my God, it's just like going, So Cape Town is very free. So I do love that part of it, and it takes away from that stigma. Everyone's got a joint in their cigarette box in Cape Town.
One of the things that was very challenging when I became a mom, right? Because I've been smoking weed since forever. And my family got tired of talking about me smoking weed. So when I had my daughter, everybody was like, oh my gosh, she's a stoner, blah, blah, blah. And she, I'm unorthodox in raising my children. I've always been open about how I'm going to homeschool and I'm going to most probably not vaccinate and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, it's the Zol, she's crazy. Then they see my daughter who is 6 years old, who speaks 5 languages, who is way ahead of every single thing.
It's the Zol.
Every month. And they ask me, why is she like this? I was pregnant and smoking Zol. So, and I mention all the time how also the only study ever published on the effects of cannabis in pregnancy had great milestones for all the children. The only study ever published in the 90s that is still, you know what I mean? She's still trying to republish this thing. She's still trying to get this approved again and stuff. And it proved that children of mothers who smoked cannabis during pregnancy are way ahead of all the milestones. And my daughter is amazing. She's 6 years old, speaks 5 languages.
Let's give a shout out in absentia to Dr. Melanie Dreyer, who did the Jamaica study all those years ago, because we quote her all the time. I think that, don't you think, Amy, that if we go back to the title of this whole thing, that I think that when it comes to women in cannabis, the stigma is just so much more layered. If I use June's example of the bartenders got piercings and body art and blah, blah, blah. So you've got the layer of stigma for somebody whose appearance is not the same. Okay, so we have, if you generally young and a person of color and you're driving a car, definitely in Joburg, and you've got dreadlocks, you are likely to be pulled over. They never pull me over, ever in my little Suzuki Swift. They never do. But they will pull over a young woman late at night, put them in danger, and particularly if you've got piercings in the body art or whatever. So don't you think, Amy, that the issue with women in cannabis is not a lack of opportunities? I think that there are opportunities, but it's that education, as Tia was saying, and it's this layers of stigma about what we look like and how we speak, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's maybe not even just women. I think that's across the board. I think especially in South Africa, we have stigma, we have profiling, and to quote you, Myrtle, it's 100 years of prohibition, or 101 years this year, that we've got to kind of get over. And it's not just about changing the laws, it's about changing people's hearts and minds too. And it's ingrained in us. And in South Africa, we do have a really large religious constitution. There's a lot of people that are religious, and unfortunately, the majority of very religious people still believe and feed into that propaganda and stigma completely. And I think that's where it all comes from, especially with the women and the mothers and that kind of,
I think a lot of women also find community in churches and religious organizations. It's a really important place, safe space for women. And then if you include yourself in a religious community, then you sometimes have to walk that tightrope between do you belong, but you also smoke, so what to do? Yes, Leela.
So, kind of tied in with the religiosity aspect, right now in the world, we're seeing a greater polarity in our global politics, where we do have this sort of alt-right versus alt-left or alt-liberal, whichever school you fall into. So what do you think the potential harms could be, considering that culture drives stigma? And, we've had our wins over the past 20 years, but for myself, I see it almost daily now, where people go, oh, you're way too opinionated, or you're way too loud. And I know if I did not have my female anatomy, that would not be a question. I would be heard. I wouldn't have to speak through my business partner to be heard in a room, for example. So how do we actually, with kindness, push back against this new hegemony that is developing in the world?
Please be kind.
No. I'm a very tiny person, but because of how tiny I am, I've kind of had to fight my way through.
Stand on toes.
You know what I mean? So as a woman, especially within cannabis and within any space, as a Black woman at that, so like my sword is triple-edged, in fact, you know what I mean? Because then immediately people see me, I'm pretty, I'm Black, I'm small, so they expect no opinions from me. So this is why my voice is so loud, because you are not going to ignore me. And I think it's about time that we let the world know that as women, even with this, the point Megan raised earlier, where women are more at risk when it comes to policy. If women are getting arrested, we're more at risk of sexual harassment. I was arrested for dacha when I was younger, and I remember the cop coming to the door and being like, oh no, if you let me in and you come out with me, I'll let you go. You don't have to. And I was like, I'd rather face the charges than face you, and that's something that we have to deal with on a daily basis. So how I've learned, when you're a rough, loud woman, most of the time people don't mess with you. They might try to say, yeah, but they can't diminish you. They can't overlook you. They can't overshout you, because best believe try to overshout me. You will see, So I was raised by a father who was disabled, but he was a visual artist. His name was Manza Mavila, very, very passionate, strong person. He was an activist, you know what I mean? And watching him surmount all of that made me realize that absolutely nothing in this world can stand in my way. And I teach that to young girls everywhere. I want young women everywhere, especially young women that look like me, that come from backgrounds where I come from, in Soweto, where we are expected to be nothing but trash and drinkers and this and that. And girl, that is not who I am. That's never been who I was. And I tell all these young girls that you don't have to be what they say you are. You determine yourself. Your voice is distinct.
It's the zone. It's the zone. She's swallowed. She swallowed too much.
So Kevin,
What's panel's going to be hard.
you're in the nightclub industry.
Yeah.
I suppose we all have our different sort of weapons.
Yeah, you have
So
to
sometimes it's a quiet determination, sometimes it's a quiet strength, sometimes it's a loud strength, sometimes it's an academic kind of strength.
I feel as a woman, I do like what you said. It isn't always me. What you can do, I cannot do, and I don't have a problem because I feel we were created differently.
You're going to carry the
And-
gas bottle.
No. You know what I mean? So I feel we also need to find our strengths where we are planted. If you're in this cannabis club, whether you're the owner, whether you're the bartender, it falls upon you on how you're going to impact those women that you come into contact with. So my mother is the pastor. She's the retired principal. And she's like, what would you guys? I'm like, you know what? That's where God put me right now in that industry. Someone is having pain, you're going to have a smoke from me. But I feel it's how you choose to impact. It's not about being quieter and you've got to take up the space.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the world is changing. There's very few men. How often want you to pay the bill on a date? There's very few men that even are thinking that way anymore. They're thinking equal. So I think if women also have to change their mindset where, I can't do this or I don't fit in,
Yeah.
No, I'm talking not in safety aspect. I'm talking business.
Yeah.
Like you, I had a male partner before because I got so annoyed at people looking at my boobs while I'm trying to partner in a business from 50%. I'll be like, what, just deal with this guy, he deals with that, I deal with this. But you gotta know what's your strengths because there's some things he can't do that you will be able to do. Whether it's related to another female or another male. So you got to find your strength and make it.
Multiple generations of women have had to learn how to take care of ourselves because there's multiple generations of men out there that got lost looking for fucking milk. And those women had to suddenly learn how to be the man of the house and raise children to be independent.
So Megan, don't you think there's something to be said for
You guys are mean.
just a quiet determination? There's so many different ways of that. If I think of Sister V, she wasn't the loudest or most exuberant, person. She wasn't that in your face, but she quietly. I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I think also Sharon, a lot of people didn't realize that since 2010, Sharon, and when Jules and I sued the government in 2010, Sharon about started Carol's Oils at that time. I think her sister was already sick then. And so she's been around, for the last 16 years. I think she also had she was outspoken, she was very strong, but I think she had a quiet determination as well. I think that there's sometimes there's pressure on women to shine brighter and whatever, but I think there's a lot of women, and I would use Sister V and Sharon as an example. There's also a strength in quiet determination and getting the job done, which gives you the confidence to keep going. Don't you think? I think that's what, I remember speaking to Sister V at a point where she was about 2/3 through her book, which is called Cannabis is the Human Companion Plant. What a beautiful title. And she was about 2/3 of her way through, and she said, "No, we're going to finish this." And she just kept on with that quiet determination until she sent us the photos of the first print run. What do you think? What's the value to this quiet determination?
Well, with Sister V, I'm going to give a bit of an double-edged sword.
Yeah.
What I learned was she had been arrested 11 times. 11 times. And I think she actually used to be a public speaker. And she told some of her work that she did. And that she actually had post-traumatic stress from the trauma. We all know, we arrested but 11 times. So I actually think her quietness, and it was quiet determination, but it was also, she was scared.
Yeah.
She was scared to go out there and expose herself yet again, But she did have that quiet determination, and that's the nurturing, healing aspect that is our almost inherited, given nature as women, And then it was Sharon as well. Yeah, she was very strong, but she was, it's when you're working with sick people, you can't be rah-rah, you gently got to take them, guide them, so you got a hand up?
No, I just want to agree. And, some people, they're not big talkers, but they are doers. So proof's in the pudding.
Yeah.
Look at what some females and males have achieved without saying it to the world. They're not spraying it all over the place, but they're getting things done. So there's another way of getting things done.
I'll never forget Sharon coming up to Pretoria, and she popped in to visit at the Jazz Farm, and she was on her way to Steve Biko Hospital to go and confront the pediatrician who wouldn't let the mother administer the cannabis to her child who had Dravet syndrome. And Sharon was on her way to go and confront that pediatrician with all of her research that she'd been doing and whatever, with this sort of determination. Anyway, I see that we're like about 4 minutes over, and I'm sure there's a coffee and a muffin and whatever waiting. Are there any more questions? I need a coffee.
No questions, but I would like to just get back to June's point about the tattooed, dreadlocked. Often I think that's, and this was a big kickback we had with the very first Cannabis Expo as well, when they were using sexy chicks to sell dacha. Yeah. We don't need sexy women to sell dacha. We need sexy shirtless men to sell dacha, please. But like, for instance, if my mother hadn't have had the audacity to pass away, and she wanted to use cannabis, I couldn't take her to a place where there's like these multiple piercing, because it's intimidating for an older, more conservative person to go. So like, I made her sit down and watch all the doctors on YouTube.
Yeah,
that's how I got my mother to stop hating cannabis so much.
When it comes to the topic, right, bad policy creates bad outcomes for women. We have to really avoid the cannabis industry over-sexualizing and exploiting women's bodies the way every other industry has done. So we need
it's time for the table to turn now.
We don't need that. We really need to set a standard. Cannabis is a conscious plant. Cannabis is a spiritual plant. Cannabis is not a fallacy and a commodity to be exploited. And we cannot use cannabis to then continue the exploitation of the female body. As women within this industry, we're going to have to really stand up for our daughters, because those are our daughters that I saw naked at the expo.
I know, that's just too much.
You can't allow that.
Sister, I'll give you 250 rand to wear a skimpy top and...
No. I was disappointed.
I hadn't seen that for a while, and I was amazed to see it back. It hasn't been at the expo for a while.
The lingerie.
Yeah.
Lady, sorry. Do you know what your bodies mean to us? What are you talking about? Being just jonga. Look at yourself. Don't go playing around with it, telling you I use. You're making us happy.
Sire.
Look, hold on. It's my turn now.
Let him explain it to us.
Look, we are very, very, very grateful brothers for their bodies, are we not? Like, amen. And if you're hiding forever from us, like we're in Saudi Arabia, how are we going to feel the happiness? Okay. I don't want to lie to you. Ganja, I never saw ganja being marketed so vibrantly like what I saw here. What you were complaining about is what we were complaining. Saying, wow, you can market ganja like this. That girl that was not wearing a panty. That girl was not wearing a panty. She was doing it on her own accord. It was her pride.
I don't know if you look at
No, you think somebody was enslaved?
It was the 500 rands for the day. It was the 500 rands for the day that she was paid to do that.
And if they're going to have semi-naked women, then they must also have semi-naked men.
Because women enjoy sex work.
No, that's not sex work.
No. I'm saying this. We are being honest. We are all adults here. Sex work does not exist because women enjoy to be sex workers. It exists out of a necessity.
No, but that's not sex work.
So that woman
Modeling
is not functioning out of enjoying that thing.
No, modeling is not
May
sex work.
I interject,
Yes,
right?
yes.
I'm a woman on this panel,
Yes.
and I feel every woman has the freedom to think the way she wants to think. Me coming from the nightclub industry, I work directly with these girls.
Yes.
Well,
They're not victims. They're not victims.
Right? In 2026, they have no issues getting 5K and like just dancing, wearing an angel thing. You can go work in clicks. They had an audition for Dancers and Angels to sell work. You came to audition. One came with a mesh top. I couldn't even focus because her nipples were in my face. You didn't even have to do that. We didn't ask her to take her clothes off even. 4 for the application.
Viva
It's
South
a
Africa,
personal
viva.
choice. When it comes to cannabis,
my country.
being also having social clout, we have certain ladies that want to do lingerie, like they come up with the idea of let's have lingerie night.
But what's being internalized then?
I'm coming to your club, Carmen.
Russ, remind me.
You coming on?
You wanted to say something?
I think it's quite a lot for me to hear exactly where our sisters find themselves in this landscape. I want to thank Megan for taking for just sharing that with Shannon and sisters.
Yes.
Two very, very good sisters that I think we kind of started our journey together. Both of them the same quiet confidence, they share. Very much to the point of once you go through X amount of experiences, your internal amplified voice, in this male-dominated reality, unfortunately, it is us, brutality. Unfortunately, the dictates of the South African reality, gender-based violence, seems to us as men, the sheer amount of cases that is out there against our women, against us, to force ourselves to listen to your realities, and then at the same time we need to make an impact. How we need to make an impact, I think, also, from my personal experience coming out of a home with a very strong matriarchy in place within boy colored culture, because that's we raised our mothers and our grandmothers to a large extent, But it doesn't take away the fact that our women have an immense sense of pride knowing where they come from, and as African women, irrespective of your skin, that you find yourself wearing. My wife is always very outspoken to say that she was raised with the notion of you got it flaunted. And I said, love, does that same teaching still apply in this day and age? We men are not strong enough to resist that, the overstimulation of the senses, in that context as but there's I think the missed opportunity also now that this biggest discussion coming to both myself and my queen at 50 years of age is that, now the world has legalized cannabis, but there's an older women, our elders, our grandmothers, grew up with our grandfathers, especially here in Cape Town in District 6. Cannabis was very, very prevalent. It was a cultural thing. They shared. Once the children went to bed, mom and dad would be out on the porch having a little toke, as we say. There was a little lippy, to go hand in hand. But it was something communally celebrated. So us in Cape Town specifically, there's a strong historical back story there that with a lot of our main elders, having been made to feel ashamed of their cannabis usage, and passing on. We're getting our grandmothers now coming to say that, like my mother, for instance, she's shit, I still don't know what that woman's age is, but I reckon about 70 something. Okay? And she's in that stage now of life where she's dealing with a physical reality. My wife is now in perimenopause, like chicks. You haven't gone through that, so be prepared. You are going to learn that women are multifaceted, So there's these physical ailments, pain that they deal with, as mature women, like my wife, she's very blessed, so she has to deal with these, so it's starting to affect the back and physical body now to the point of she starts shouting because my wife plays this whole day, every day.
But I'm 45. I feel I'm healthy. I only smoke weed. The only thing I take is like Panado or Corenza. It depends on your lifestyle. I feel that age story is, like it's what you're gonna. We only here one time also.
Yeah, but I was kind of getting to the point that unless you inspire, the next generation to unpack this the stigma, that's when my grandmother and my mother and my grandmother, they come across this information from across the ocean where we see these women, mature women having discussion around like, hey, did you hear about this gummy thing?
Absolutely.
Say like, yo man, I don't have issues with my arthritis, my osteo, etc. Those kind of things now because especially here, how people are talking, they're having a very, very healthy conversation, but there's that stigma. So we take pride into the younger sister left, but she's in the wellness space as well. She said like she goes through severe pressure within the healthcare system. She works for the Department of Health. But she's that trailblazer that I'm saying it carries the spirit of Sister Sharon and Sister V. But there's that mature eldership that I think is very, very much honored for us men, balanced men. That sees this patriarchy and let's say bad policies.
We reject it.
Well, I think, Benj, the last time we were in this room together, the two academics from Bristol behind you were also in this room. I don't think Neil was here, but Gernot was here. Do you remember the last time we were in this room and Benji was with us? He was in this room. Even if we look at how much, I can't remember when that was. It was now like 4 years ago. Yeah, when we were just establishing the Cannabis Africana project. I think we can salute how far we've come, because despite the fact that when people are looking for speakers for panels or conferences, or sometimes you feel like you've got to scratch around to find a woman, this is not the case anymore. And I'd really like to salute my panel. I mean, look at this vast array of expertise. We've got law and sort of law / academic. We've got wellness, we've got harm reduction, we've got community leadership, and we've got business. All in one panel. I think it worked out so nicely that we could combine these two panels, and I'd love to give our amazing sisters a round of applause. Thank you. And anybody else, if you would like to join the Sativa Sisters group, it's great. I'm not on there. It crowds my head too much. But Amy lets me know, and it's Megan's group. And it really, really is, there's WhatsApp groups and there's WhatsApp groups, And I think that this one is really evidence-based. So cool. Everybody have a lovely evening.